Hi there, Jar of Marble listeners. Welcome to my podcast, Jar of Marbles, where I talk about anything and everything that has brought me to my age, 60. You know, aging is a privilege. Jar of Marbles, the name of my podcast, and why. To me, it's representative of the unknown years left on the planet. We don't know how long we've got. We don't know how many months, weeks, or days. None of us know. And each marble, to me, represents each episode, every story. I feel that every day one path leads to another path, and so on. I say every day because, in honest truth, I'm one of those people. I think, I overthink, and then I get something sorted, but then there's these other thoughts to contend with. And I think, there's that word, think again, it really became even more prolific during the pandemic period. I mean, I was okay about being in lockdown because I think I was in some kind of self-imposed lockdown regarding my life anyway. Not so much because I had turned 60, but because I turned 60. Now, what I mean by that is I still felt, like a beautiful woman that I never really been one to be defined by my age. And when I say beautiful, I'm just talking about just at peace with myself in most ways, I guess. And I think that I needed a time to really have a look at how am I going to spend the next few years of my life. And let's just say, for argument's sake, I've got another 10, 20 years left. I really want to make it worthwhile consciously rather than go, I'll get to that. That saying doesn't hold much weight with me anymore because, as I said right at the beginning, turning 60s feels like such a privilege. And so I need to be a little bit more interested in what I'm going to do with myself moving forward. And I'm hoping that this is resonating with you out there. And you don't even have to be 60. I know so many people, or have met so many people in my life who are half my age and have a wonderful wisdom about them, an incredible curiosity about life. And most people don't realise how wonderful they actually are. And I'm hoping that this podcast can be a place to, put your feet up. Maybe you can't do that if you're on a plane, but to be able to listen to other views on life. And because we're going to be going, we as in me and myself, going to be going on Facebook and Spotify at this stage, Facebook does allow you the opportunity, if you want to leave a comment or ask a question or tell your story. This is really what I would like to encourage. I think that particularly because of the pandemic period, some of us may have got a little bit lost and maybe felt even more so shut in, and coming back out was maybe not the easiest thing to do, that there was that terrible cautiousness and that fear, and putting on a brave face while putting on your mask and going out and feeling like you were taking some huge risk to go out and get your eggs. That's if you eat eggs. But anyway, I don't, but that's neither here nor there. Stop changing the subject. Anywho, there really is something about this age, 50s, 60s and beyond. Women, they start to feel invisible, that sense of feeling culturally irrelevant. Once upon a time, this was a really big thing, and I remember being aware of it when I was coming into my 40s, and I had friends who were quite a bit older than me, and that was something that they would say quite a bit, was just feeling like they literally were invisible. I just think we're entering, and we have entered into a very different sphere in life, because we don't need to feel invisible. To whom? To whom is it that we are to feel invisible to? The woman of today, more often than not, you want to hope that you're not invisible to us. I'm not one of these people that is really bothered about whether you see me or not. The tables are changing, the tables are turning. If we keep talking about the stage of life, the middle of our life, as some kind of ending, instead of maybe a new beginning, we lose the incredible brilliance and wisdom of people at my age and beyond. We lose what days we have left on the planet in terms of experience that we can share with others just by being alive, just by being actually relevant. So as I was saying before, one path leads to another path and so on. And that's why we mustn't give up. Now, I remember somewhere in the pandemic period where I had turned 60, I had realised that I had really well and truly lost my vavoom. And I had lost my desire to go out and get a life, because it would appear to me for the longest time that was sort of like my secret hankering. I was going to go and get this life. I was going to go and live this life that I felt that I didn't have before. Now, I can't say with any kind of exactitude what kind of life I was desiring, because I was also really out of steam. I felt like I had no wind in my sails, and looking back, it had just really crept up really slowly. So it wasn't like a big, shocking, non-awe-inspired awakening. I figured I had sort of long ago entered into some kind of version of a dark night of the soul. And I also realised that I had become quite accepting of this. Now that's a little bit of bullshit right there. I'd given up on myself. I felt quite empty. And to be honest, I'd never really experienced that before. And somehow I foolishly labelled myself as accepting of my lot. Ha! What a joke! Me, accepting of my lot! Ha ha! I'm going to go down going, I'm not accepting of my lot! So here I am, back in the jungle with this podcast, because I decided that at some point I was going to have to stop placing my happiness in the future, and I was going to have to begin to appreciate where I was right now. And one of those things was to start a podcast. So there was a saying I've read somewhere along the line that said, my goal is to build a life that I don't need a vacation from. And that is so true. I'm in this retirement period of my life, and there's so much to talk about. And I really feel like I want to be loud about a few things that are important to me, and I'm sure are really important to you. And I think it's also trusting timing. This seems to be the most amazing timing to start something like this, to create a path, because you've got to give things a go. If you don't do it, then you'll never know. And there was something that I said to my daughter the other day, actually said it on our other podcast that I have with my daughter Carla called Mum and I. And it was like I accidentally woke up gorgeous again this morning. And I love saying things like that to her because it makes her laugh. But it's also that tongue-in-cheek about, in this case too, is like a little bit wary about doing this, but I just got to do it. And so I'm going to do it, and I hope that you'll come along with me. I hope that you enjoy it. I hope I get a little bit of feedback. I think it might be just a really good time. There'll be a few of these bits and pieces. We're not on Facebook. I am on YouTube. I was going on about being on Facebook before, and being the professional that I am, I just needed to correct that. But you probably knew that, being the smart, intelligent, wonderful people that you are. But come along, you can do it. Well, being 60, like anybody that is this age, or anyone that has parents or grandparents or friends that are in this age group, we've experienced so much leading up to this point, even from, say, a perspective of where we are with technology. Back in the day, if you had a telephone in your house, that was pretty modern, and if that phone rang, everybody ran to actually pick up the phone. It's very exciting, and even more exciting if it was for you. And you couldn't go very far because you were attached to the telephone, which was attached to the wall. So you would sit on the ground if you were going to be on the phone for a while. And that was, so thrilling. And so same with letter writing. I used to get a lot of mail as a child because I used to do a lot of letter writing to my grandparents and aunties in Scotland, who used to then in turn write to me. And it was mentioned to me by my parents, like, oh, you get more mail than us. I was like, well, that's because I write a lot. And so it was really satisfying knowing, it took approximately 7 days for my mail to get to Scotland. So, and there would be a couple of days I would allow them to then sit down and write a letter back to me. So you were just chasing after that mail every day, running to the letterbox. If you saw the mailman come and there in the mailbox was a letter with your name on it, it was just beyond exciting. It was so fantastic to sit there and read the letter, and you didn't want the letter to end. You wanted to savor every moment, and you just felt on top of the world. Nowadays, we've got such an extreme opposite where people will, argue, well, you can email letters, it's fast, you can do it. And I say, well, I think that's the point. It's fast. But who actually emails letters? I'm sure there are people that do, but it's not as exciting or personal or lovely as actually taking the time to write a letter, getting yourself to the post office, buying a stamp, sticking it on the envelope, making sure you got the right address, and then you post it off. Now, a letter to New Zealand takes 3 weeks. There's probably a couple of good reasons for that. One being post-pandemic, they just changed, everything slowed down so much. But prior to it, letter writing, and we've gone paperless in so many ways that I guess they felt they didn't need to be posting very little 5 days a week. So we're now down to 3 days. So 3 weeks it takes. We know this because we've monitored it. We've taken a picture of the letter on the day it's posted, and then the recipient takes a photo and then received it today. Do a quick bit of maths. Yeah, it's 3 weeks. So I had invited a couple of my friends, how would you feel about, writing letters? And I guess it's just not for everybody. But it turns out that I have a pen pal, which is great, and it's a friend, a younger sister, a friend of a friend, who we write to each other religiously, because it was mentioned to me that Tracy, hi Tracy, if you're listening, love your letters, thank you so much, who writes back and who also loves receiving letters. So it's keeping a tradition alive where, this might be something that's just not done anymore. I can't imagine that world, but then I didn't imagine the world that we live in now, where if someone texts you, a quick little message, that's about as good as it gets. There's none of this, not very often anyway, where people just pick up the phone and you're on for a long natter. I know people that are on their phone a lot, ringing family and big long conversations with their family, etc., because that is the only mode of communication when they can't see each other, being in other countries, and I think that's lovely. But more often than not, we're now texting each other back and forth, hello, how are you, thinking of you today, which is lovely, but nothing can replace, the picking up of a phone and having conversations and developing a rapport, a connection, and especially if it's cousins that you haven't seen for many, many years, or really good school friends, or friends that you knew in your teenage years, your early 20s, where you were just having a fantastic time, and you have amazing memories. And a lot of times with memories, they don't really strike open until you're in each other's company, and then it's the whole lot of, remember that time? Remember when you did that? Oh, wasn't that funny? And the thing is, the longer the time goes in between these conversations, it's quite amazing what we forget. Much like when we had TV. TV, I recall, first TV we ever had, I think I was about 6 years old. And we weren't really interested in it because back in the day, you stayed outside, you played outside, and you only came back when you needed something to eat. You didn't really feel that you were very welcome at home, so go off and do something, and that's what we did. But I do remember one of the first things I ever watched was Star Trek, and it was an episode that involved holograms. And can I tell you, that was pretty freaky. That was, the little mind had nothing to refer or compare or reference, I think I'm trying to say. But anyway, that was sort of my first experience of TV, and there was a lot of God Save the Queen business at the end with that high-pitched sound if you fell asleep in front of the TV. There was one channel, and I don't really recall watching very much TV as a little girl. But again, they were just these. It was common to have a radio going in the kitchen, and there was the news. There were stories that you could listen to, and things were so much simpler, obviously, and so it was really just such a different time. You can't even compare so much to this day. Like as I was saying before, letter writing, that was commonplace. That's what you did. Now it is the reclaiming of an art to keep something alive, the interest that it takes in what you are actually writing about, because what am I going to actually tell this person? And it's you think it's very simple, but it's like anything, when you haven't done something like that for years or maybe never, it's quite interesting when you sit down with your little piece of paper and it's like, "Dear Bob, how are you? Hope you and the family are well. I am well too." And then whatever's going to come after that. I used to write the craziest letters to my grandparents. I would just tell them all sorts of odd bod stories because I thought that's what you did. But it's like anything, like starting a podcast, for example. When you really don't know what you're doing, you got to suddenly attain some skills, and you're hoping that it'll evolve into something kind of interesting. I know I'm probably going to look back on all of this and cringe ever so slightly and go, oh, but as I would say to my children or any of my friends, and I'm saying this to myself, you've got to start somewhere, you've got to give it a go, and that's what I'm doing. And it's quite interesting when we look at paths, how we find ourselves on paths. Most often, we don't even know that we're on one. All we know sometimes is we're bored out of our mind, or is this all there is, or are things ever going to change? But we're always on a path. I know this. And the more uncomfortable you are, I tend to think that it is just something that is really important for you to open your eyes about. I had cassettes where I used to interview my children when they were really little. Now, my children range from the age of 26 through to 37. And I used to ask them their name, how old they are, and tell me a little bit about themselves from very, very young ages, where they could barely put words together, right up to about the ages of 9 and 10 years of age. Now, of course, making those back in the 1980s, I started getting very, very concerned over the pandemic that they were just going to deteriorate and they'd be lost forever. So I had to teach myself how to convert them from cassette form into digital. So I did that, and there were moments where I just sort of thought, okay, can I do this? And I thought, well, I want to do it. I want to be able to, at the very least, convert them into MP3s, put them on a USB, and then when the next U-Butte thing comes along, then we'll change that. But at least I had files, I had copies of them, and that was the beginning of me realising that I could, if I put my mind to it, learn new things in order to do what I'm doing now. The podcast Jar of Marbles is representative of so many experiences that I've had in my life, things that I've done on just a whim, or just, well, I think I might do that. It was like when I opened up my first cafe in Newtown, Sydney. I was 21, but I didn't know how to cook. Mere detail. I mean, I can giggle about it now, tongue-in-cheek, etc. Makes for a great story, but it's all true. And if it wasn't for my tenaciousness and asking one lady out there who used to come into my cafe, I just wonder if she's out there, a lovely lady called Sylvia, and she walked in one day to come and get her a cup of tea and a sandwich, and I'd say, Sylvia, do you know how to make rissoles? And she would tell me what to do, and then I would just go and get the ingredients later in the day, make them, and I started this whole passion for food. Now, that was a long time ago. That was back in 1984. Point being is, you don't have to know everything to make something, to have a go at something, to have a start. This whole guideline where you've got to do this, tick that boxes, you've got to have a business plan, and you've got to do this, a lot of it's just, it's all excuses as to, okay, this is what I need to do. I need to get these certificates, or I need to go to the council for this, that, the next thing, whatever it may be. And not all things are that complicated, and really, they're not even complicated. It's just, like a lot of things, once you've done it, then you're in the system, and then it's just moving forward, and it might be something you have to renew every 1 or 3 years, etc., or whatever. But I found that I am one of these people that I like to learn new things, and I can make it quite painful for myself, because as much as I'm learning, I can go into a bit of resistance as well, because I'm wondering if I can actually do it, and then I'm wondering, why am I doing it? What's the end game? Is this really what I want to do? Or is it just simply I want the challenge and I'll move quickly on to the next thing? Now, with me, it could well be that in so many things that I've done in my life, I thought, right, I'm doing that, and then I learn it and go, nah. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's just another string to your bow. It's something else that you can do, and just because you can do it doesn't mean to say you have to. Or just because you know how to do something doesn't mean to say you have to do it. Like when I finished up in the cafe game, I ended up buying and selling 4 times, and they were all with my own recipes. I had a formula that worked, and as they say, if you have a formula, don't change it. And fortunately, I knew that. I knew that if I just stuck to that formula in relation to running the cafe, that it worked. And no matter where I ran it, whether it was in the city, whether it was down the south coast of Australia, or whether it was in New Zealand, the menu worked. The whole way I did things worked. Point being is, give things a go. If you find something that works, or you find something's a little bit more popular, or you get more likes from doing something, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, or people love your artwork, or they love the way you sing, or they love how you create online platforms. I mean, honestly, I'm just trying to pull things out of the air right now. It could be anything. It could be crocheting. It could be playing the guitar. It could be training doggies. They're everything, cooking. There is so much that we can learn, and I think we live in a world where if we're not the best, or if we can't be the best, then we're not going to give it a go. And that's just absolute rubbish, because even the people that you consider to be the best, they didn't know anything once either. And they just kept going because it was something they enjoyed. We're not all going to get notoriety. This is about as notoriety as I'm going to get in regard to having this podcast with my 3 listeners. If that be the case, fine. I really am ticking a box for myself. This is something I want to do. Yes, the aim is to make friends, to share information, to, make contact with others, most definitely. Which brings me around to another point. I am starting a podcast with the hope of, making friends. Now, when I say that, I do mean that on the back of the pandemic, I realised that not just me, but different people I spoke to, they found it really difficult to go back out into the world after being shut down for so long, locked down rather, and then when they eventually found the courage to go back out all masked up, with the fear of God driven into us by the media, it was a bit of a frenzy. And instead of it being supportive and filled with lots of good information, it was what you expect from an entertainment show, like they call it the news, but we all know it's just entertainment. And if that's your choice of entertainment, excellent. But I found that, and I was like this many, many years ago. This was not anything new. This is not new for me. I have never been a news TV watching person. I never walked away feeling empowered or, well, that was good news. It was like, well, I better just go and cut my wrists now. Not that I ever considered that, nor do I ever say that as the answer. I'm just trying to say that it never made me feel good. It made me feel really sad inside. And I thought, that's not helpful, so not doing it. So I don't do it. Any bit of news that I can glean about the world is from talking to my friends and hearing the odd bit of news here and there. Do you know that? Blah, blah, blah. And most of it is rubbish. Rubbish in as much as it's sad, it's bad, it's frightening. You don't usually hear wonderful news. It's just confirming and reiterating just how scary this world is. But on the flip side, the world is actually an amazing place, and that once we can find our way past feeling scared about going out to the world and making new friends and these rules that someone made up, once you get to a certain age, you can't have long hair. Oh, well, I've got long hair. Once you get to a certain age, you can't go out dancing. Well, that's just rubbish. Once you get to a certain age, you'll never find new friends. Really? That's just terrible. Not true. Once you get to a certain age, people won't find you attractive anymore. Would you stop it? I'm belting them off with fly swatters. Seriously, 60. I can only talk about what I know in the age group that I am in. I care about my life moving forward. I am looking forward to the next few decades. I'm looking forward to finding out more about the world, about my friends I haven't met yet. I want to find out more about myself. Being 60 and free and this whole retirement label means that, okay, well, what can I do to make my life a happy one? What can I do that will mean I want to bounce out of bed in the morning and think about doing and going to exciting places? An exciting place might be just to go down to the beach and go for a walk and feel really grateful for being alive. Exciting might be jumping on a plane and going down to the next state to go and have a milkshake with a friend. Excitement can be so many things, having a great idea for a painting or a great idea for a song or a great idea about what I want to do with my garden moving forward. I am fortunate. I have created a lot of areas in my life that I enjoy. I enjoy animals and gardening, and I enjoy flowers that are just about to open up. I love food. I'm a bit of a foodie. I love growing my own food, my own herbs. I love painting. I love singing, guitar, songwriting. I love reading. I love listening to podcasts. I've been listening to podcasts for years, and I love listening to different people who have different ideas and people that I feel like I can relate to. We're all at different stages in our life. I might not be for you, but I might be. And if I am, that is just wonderful, because if you're for me, then I'm definitely for you, which is a very, very nice fit. I am going to have to start thinking about saying goodbye, but I wanted to thank you very much for coming along. And if you're still here now, you are absolutely a hero, a heroine, a goddess. Yes, you are indeed. And I feel that I have talked enough. I hope that some of what I've said is sparked a memory, or maybe you didn't know that. There's so much to say, so much more to say about all those subjects. But unless you want me to talk about more of it, I'm just going to next time just come up with something else and what I might be thinking about or what I dreamed about last night, because they all connect. Everything we do connects. People need people, and I'm here, Jarrah Marble Dwellers, to let you know that it's been an honour and a pleasure. And say g'day to the family for me.